Welcome back to the deep dive. You know that feeling when a new tech trend seems to spring out of nowhere, accelerating from a niche experiment to an absolute corporate necessity in just, a year or two?
That profound shift from "we should watch this" to "if we don't start funding this immediately, we are obsolete," that isn't a fluke. It's not random.
Not at all. It's a highly structured process.
Exactly. So today we are mapping out the 7 distinct layers of the technology adoption lifecycle. It's like a hidden path an idea takes from a researcher's desk straight into your mandatory annual budget. It's an essential map, really, for anyone trying to navigate modern market dynamics. We're going to break down this systematic, organized sequence, a sort of controlled ripple effect that just amplifies a technology until it achieves escape velocity.
A ripple effect. I like that.
Yeah, and each of these 7 layers serves a very specific function. It acts as an accelerator, ensuring that an initial probe becomes an inevitable necessity for the final organizations that buy it.
Okay, let's unpack this now. Let's go right to the genesis of the trend. Where does a new idea even begin, and what's the first job of the people who create it?
So we start at layer 1, the innovation layer. This is the bedrock. We're talking about inventors, university researchers, and those, earliest stage startups.
And their output is obviously the new idea, the raw, unpolished, often really hard to understand technology. But what do the sources say about their real goal? Because it's not just pure invention, is it?
Not at all. Their core goal, even at this super early stage, is to signal inevitability. They have to prove that the world needs this new thing, often before the market even knows what it is.
How do they do that?
They do it by establishing a foundational intellectual precedent, releasing groundbreaking open source research, or publishing those really dense, high impact white papers. They're planting a seed that fundamentally disrupts the status quo.
So, they're basically creating a technical vacuum that eventually has to be filled. They make a compelling purely scientific or engineering case for why current methods are just doomed.
And if that case is strong enough, it immediately attracts the next group. That brings us to layer 2, the capital layer.
The money. This is where the venture capitalists, the angel investors, and the accelerators all jump in. So this is where the translation begins, right? We're moving away from laboratory proof and into market validation. But wait, how reliable is that validation if the tech is still unproven at scale?
That's the key question. The sources are really clear on this. The capital layer is validating potential, not necessarily technical maturity. Their job is to translate that innovative promise into financial momentum. They don't use technical metrics. They use funding rounds, valuation, and growth projections. The massive valuation bump they give a new company isn't just money, it's a profound market signal, and that signal is the fuel. It turns a promising idea into a must-have investment narrative. If, say, competitor X just raised 200 million for their AI tool, then suddenly every other competitor in that space feels that immediate need to react. It creates a sense of manufactured urgency. The capital layer is the first massive amplifier. It moves the idea from an academic curiosity to a funded high-stakes market race. It makes the idea look serious, powerful, and necessary to the financial world, even if large-scale enterprise adoption is still years away.
So, we've cracked the idea from the bench to the bank. The money is confirmed, the race is on. But running a race needs cheerleaders and commentators. So how does that financially validated idea get market airtime instead of just corporate attention?
Well, that's where the critical pivot begins. We shift from financial pressure to psychological pressure. And that's the work of layer 3, the narrative layer, the storytellers, analysts, tech media, the big conference keynotes. And yes, the professional influencers, their job is to scale the trend way beyond the boardroom.
And they have a really sophisticated toolkit for it. They build momentum by coining catchy trend names. Think Web3 or Metaverse or generative AI when it first emerged. They create simple frameworks and these aggressive decade-long forecasts of disruption.
I think the most powerful takeaway here is the goal of that narrative layer to create perceived necessity. Their forecasts are designed to make executives feel the wave is already moving. It creates a pervasive fear of missing out.
That FOMO.
Yes, that FOMO. If you've ever felt professional pressure just from reading an article on LinkedIn, that's the narrative layer working perfectly. It's entirely psychological, but abstract psychological pressure, however powerful, it doesn't automatically trigger spending. It needs to be converted into a formal internal mandate. That's the absolutely indispensable role of layer 4, the advisory layer.
The strategy consultancies and big advisory firms, they're the professional translators, turning that generalized market panic into specific corporate action. They generate deliverables like gap assessments and multi-year roadmaps.
Precisely, they step in to translate the vague narrative, the idea that AI disruption is coming, into something concrete you can actually present to the board and crucially budget against.
Let's focus on one of those tools for a second, the maturity model. Why is that so powerful in driving adoption?
Because it weaponizes comparison. A maturity model forces an organization to benchmark itself against its peers. It shows visually that your competitor is at level 4 optimized while you are stuck down at level 2 exploratory.
So it immediately identifies deficiencies that require external help and, more importantly, internal funding. So the narrative layer creates the fear of being left behind, and the advisory layer monetizes that fear. It provides the official document that proves you are in fact behind, and here is the multi-phase plan and the cost to catch up.
It is the crucial step. It turns that generalized market sentiment of everyone is doing it into the specific internal mandate. We need to allocate budget immediately to close this gap. You got it? That's the pivot point. Once the strategy is established and the urgency is budgeted, we move into the actual work of implementation and lock-in, and this means moving the plan off the paper and into the infrastructure.
Which brings us to layer 5, the enabler layer. These are your systems integrators and professional service providers, the hands-on converters.
They convert those highly beautiful roadmaps from layer 4 into messy, practical, multi-year action. This involves all the grunt work implementation, massive system migrations, integration with legacy tech, change management.
But their output isn't just functioning technology, is it? It's long-term service contracts, it's dependency.
That's right. They establish the process of adoption, ensuring continuity, and selling the specialized labor required to navigate that transition. They're managing the risk of the change itself. And while the enablers are managing the process, layer 6 is providing the infrastructure.
Exactly. This is the tooling layer, the vendors, the proprietary platforms, the entire ecosystem of technology providers.
And their goal is lock-in through embedding themselves in the company completely. They need to provide the actual software and platforms that make the adoption real, ensuring that the company's new strategy is irreversibly tied to their product. They seek to position themselves so deep into the organization's daily infrastructure, the databases, the cloud instances, the collaboration suites, that changing them later becomes prohibitively expensive and time-consuming. They become the default choice.
So we have a really clear division here. Then the enablers in layer 5 handle the labor and the process of getting the system running, and the tooling layer, layer 6, handles the product and creates the dependency that ensures future spending. The trend is now fully operational and embedded, which naturally leads us to the final destination, layer 7, the buyer layer. These are the organizations, the C-suite, the executives, the decision makers who ultimately authorize the spending.
It's fascinating because the buyer at this stage, they're not interacting with the raw idea from layer one at all. They're interacting with a fully constructed reality built by the 6 layers that came before. And the buyer often unknowingly repeats the language of those influencers when they're articulating their needs. They don't just say, we need new software. No, they echo the financial urgency of the VCs, the catchy framework of the analyst, and the implementation language of the consultant.
Can you give us an example? What would that repeated language actually sound like?
Sure, an executive might say something like, to remain competitive, we must implement an integrated cloud-native transformation strategy, leveraging our new proprietary data platform, moving us from level 2 to level 4 maturity immediately.
Wow.
That single phrase is a synthesis of the tooling layer, the narrative layer, and the advisory layer, all rolled into one budgetary approval justification. And that just shows the cumulative psychological effect. The buyer isn't reacting to an idea anymore. They're reacting to an overwhelming consensus, a fully structured case for necessary action. They feel like they have no choice but to authorize the spending. And that budget authorization is the ultimate success marker of this entire 7-layer system. The money moves, securing the profits of the other 6 layers, and the cycle is complete. A raw idea has been systematically moved from academic curiosity to a major line item in a corporate budget.
That is a remarkable map. We've traced the full ripple effect from a startup claiming a discovery is inevitable all the way to an executive signing a multi-million-dollar contract. It makes it so clear that the progression from experimental to necessary is rarely spontaneous.
It's structured, sequential, and driven by layers whose primary goal is sustained amplify. Absolutely. The sources reveal that tech trends are often less organic movements and more, structured, manufactured events. And knowing the function of each layer helps you see the matrix, so to speak. It helps you understand why certain concepts gain momentum so rapidly while others just languish.
Exactly.
So now that you can identify the systematic roles of the innovation, capital, narrative, advisory, enabler, and tooling layers, here is a provocative thought for you to carry forward. When you hear about a new must-do trend, take a moment to critically assess the source of the urgency you feel. Are you responding to the raw technical merit of layer 1, or are you absorbing the prepackaged mandatory language that originated in layers 3 and 4? Which layer's echo are you currently hearing?
That's a perfect lens for navigating today's information overload. Understanding the system is the first step toward controlling your response to it. That's all the time we have for this deep dive. Thank you for sharing your sources with us, and we look forward to the next investigation.
Until next time.